celebrities, or sponsors. Encouraging, educating, and empowering you into action. This is Warriors Talk with your host, Lady ReShell.
Hello. Welcome to Warriors Talk with author and founder Lady ReShell, where we move away from awareness towards action. It's Health and Wellness Monday, and our topic for today is combating vaccines misinformation. We are live on Intellectual Radio. We just heard from the Drive at 5 with Roman. Keep it locked right here on Intellectual Radio and allow us to feed your brain. On the last episode of Warriors Talk, we talked to author Denise Williams and her new book, Learning How Not to Faint. And we also gave away a free copy of that book to Tabitha Akins, who answered our question correctly. So you can go over to YouTube, type in Intellectual Radio for any episodes you may have missed of Warriors Talk and stay connected. The quote of the day is, "No one is safe until everyone is safe." We are grateful for our sponsors. We have Gloria Dotson with Mary Kay, Paula Kelly with Allstate, and we have our newest sponsor, which is MyLeah Symone with Affordable Book Editing Services. And then we have Emanuel C.O.G.I.C with Pastor Michael Richardson, who has a special message for us.
Greetings, I am Pastor Michael Richardson.
And I am First Lady Anastasia Richardson from the Emanuel Church of God in Christ. We're located at 3058 West Van Buren in Chicago, Illinois. We are building upon a solid foundation.
And we're inviting you to join us every Sunday morning on Facebook Live at Emanuel C.O.G.I.C at 10:15 Central Standard Time. And you can also view our videos on our YouTube channel at Emanuel C.O.G.I.C-MR. Once again, this is Pastor Michael Richardson
and First Lady Anastasia Richardson, and we're from the Emanuel Church of God in Christ. We are building upon a solid foundation.
And I am grateful for my sponsors. Here are your trending topics for today. Olympic organizers will ban spectators from the games in Tokyo after Japan declared a state of emergency amid issues of COVID-19 cases in the country. The decision presents a new challenge for the games, which were already delayed a year due to the pandemic. There's an immense pressure to curb the actual spread of the virus due to the games, protecting both the athletes and neighboring regions. More than 1,100,000 competitors are expected to travel to Japan to compete, along with thousands of officials and staff set to attend. Nationwide, Japan has reported 800,000 coronavirus cases and 14,800 deaths, according to the data from the World Health Organization. However, the nation has faced a relatively slow vaccine rollout. Only about a quarter of the population has been vaccinated with at least one COVID-19 shot. Those are your trending topics for today. If you are tuned in on any form of social media, please like and share the show. Invite someone else in on the show who you feel may benefit from this valuable information. Joining me today is our healthy solution expert with over 20 years experience as a family physician impacting lives every day, Doc Michelle. Hello, Doc.
Hello, Lady ReShell. How are you today? Happy Monday.
Thank you. I'm good. Excited to talk about this topic.
Yes. We thought that we wouldn't have to talk about this topic, but here we are, sort of back to not the beginning, but a little bit of a slide. So I think we need to address this vaccine misinformation so that everyone, including people in our own communities, can get vaccinated.
Awesome. So we both know that accurate information is really critical, especially when it comes to the vaccines. And we know that so many people have already lost their lives due to the coronavirus. So when we can get some information, we have to make sure that that information is facts. So, consider the source of where you get the information. So we're going to talk about today, our topic is combating vaccines misinformation. And we know there's a lot of information that's floating out there on social media. And even when you talk to just some of your family and friends who may have a difference of opinion than yours, they may can kind of sway you or have you think in another way. So I would encourage you to go to the World Health Organization, the Center for Disease Control, even look up Dr. Fauci, to get your information, go right to the source so that you can make an informed decision, because after all, this is your life.
Yes. And I mean, coronavirus, there's, I think, over 4 million people that have died from this coronavirus since the beginning. 190 million confirmed cases, I think 75 million in the US. And so we've got to get a handle on it. And as you said, we have to, the information that's out there, we have to be detectives and consider the source. You mentioned Dr. Fauci. Dr. Fauci, to me, is such a credible source, because when I was a young doctor, he was at the forefront of HIV treatments. And I remember him clearly being the expert in infectious disease back then in the 90s, when I was come about in the 90s and the early 2000s as a young doctor. And he really has nothing but our interest, even before politics and all of that came into play. He has the expertise to give us the facts without bias, right? We've got to believe the science. We've got to believe the scientists that have the experience in this field. Because many times what's happening today is politics is getting into the mix of it, and it muddies the information and muddies the waters about what's clear. So, we talked earlier, ReShell, about the history of vaccines, right? So we know that vaccines for many, many years have helped to eradicate disease. We know that I think 1979 was the last polio case. We've all had our polio vaccines as babies. Smallpox years ago, that's been eradicated. We get our measles, mumps, rubella vaccines as infants, right? And we accept it as the norm because we've been told by scientists and doctors that this is going to keep your baby safe going into adulthood, right? And so that's been history. And we know that those diseases have been eradicated. Sometimes we see pop-ups of measles and mumps in people who have decided not to get their children vaccinated. So we have to be aware that this thing that we're dealing with vaccines is not new, right? People are concerned about how fast the vaccine came about. And in general, we usually like to study vaccines for years, 2 to 3 years, to get that long-term side effects and efficacy. But in truth, what we know is the details of this vaccine were being studied for years, right? The pieces, the spike protein, all the things that go into this vaccine, those ingredients were being studied for years. We just put it together to attack this particular virus. And so thank God for scientists who do this work, who think about the possibility of pandemics before they even come around. So when this happens, we already had that basis to say, hey, we've isolated this virus. Here's what it looks like. Here's the things we've been working on. Let's see if it works. And thank goodness it worked on this particular virus. So even though it seems like it's come around quickly, people have been doing studies of these type of vaccines for years, and it became the opportunity to put it into action.
MyLeah, Symone says, I'm glad I got my COVID vaccine. Thank God for scientists. There are some people out there
Yes.
that will do their research and make up their own mind. We have the history of vaccines, and it's like all of a sudden we've been taking these vaccines since we were little. And I know we really didn't have a choice because our parents actually, took us to get the vaccines. But it seems like you said, all of a sudden everybody has all of these questions because presto, we have a vaccine. But I would say if the scientists have been doing all this research all of this time, right now with all of this technology, it should not take a long time to do the vaccine. The thing that takes the longest is that you do the research, you have to get it approved, you have to have the clinical trials, you got to study, there's different phases that comes along with the different trials, and then you have to wait to get it approved. And some people will say, the vaccines are not even approved yet, and they got us taking something that's not even approved. Why would you take that? The government hasn't even approved it yet.
Well, here's what happens with that. So there's this thing called the emergency use authorization. So they do the studies on it. It goes through the phases, phase 1, 2, and 3 trials. And normally the FDA, who is the final sort of approval, the FDA wants a good 1 to 2 years in normal circumstances of data. They want that information to see if there's any long-term effects. But in truth, going back to, if we see that the vaccine works, if the scientists weigh the benefit versus the risk of waiting, because people were dying, right, in astronomical numbers, and we know that if there is a serious side effect to a vaccine, that is usually found out within the first few months of being on that. That's why you heard that after 3 months, right, they would say, well, it's been in phase 3 trials for 3 months. That's when they actually give it to a person, an actual human, and they watch and see what effects it has. And they give that about 90 days, because in general, for an emergency use authorization, if you're going to see a problem with that vaccine, you're going to see it in those first few months. You're not going to get serious, life-threatening reactions a year from now. That's been the history of vaccines. And we as scientists, with anything we do, right, any drug that comes out, any medication, you weigh what's the benefit, what's the good, versus is there a serious life-threatening risk, right? That's why medications have serious side effects, not so serious, life-threatening, right? If you're going to stop breathing, you don't take that. If you're going to have some diarrhea, you might take that medicine, right? So there's levels to side effects, but the most serious side effects that you would find from a vaccine would be in the first, few weeks to few months of getting that vaccine in your system. And that's why they did the studies for 3 months, offered the emergency use authorization, which has also been around forever. That's not a new concept because of what we were dealing with. And the final sort of FDA approval in general for vaccines comes later. But we had to do things differently with this disease and this virus.
I totally agree, because we were seeing people just dying. We remember how it was in New York. It was like a massacre going on, and they was dying so fast that the bodies were stacking up at the morgue. They didn't really know what to do. So do we just continue to let these people die and say, let's just take a long time to get this vaccine out, or do we go ahead and get the vaccine out so that we can help save some lives? So you have to look at the bigger picture. And like you said, the benefits of it will outweigh the risk. Did some people have some type of side effects? They told you. When you got the shot, they told you exactly what you're going to experience, what to watch out for, so that you would know. And they told you if that happens, this is what you would do. If it was really severe, then you go to the ER. But, so we were aware of, okay, depending on which one you took, you may get a fever, you may get a headache, you may get chills, so then you knew, okay, if you did get those things, if they didn't pass in a certain amount of time, you knew you were going to the ER. So, I know it's a scary thing
Yeah.
to think that, okay, there was so many, the information that was going around about COVID, some of it you could just sit back and laugh at it. And some of it you think like people really think like this. Like, and if they think like that, just imagining them talking to someone else, getting the information out. So there's the misinformation where, okay, you just don't have all your facts together. And then there's the disinformation where it's just plain out not true. They can't prove anything. So again, just be careful and check your sources. Just because they're your ride or die or whatever, they may not have the facts. So this is your body, and if you decide that this is what you're going to do, the least you can do is to research it.
Yeah, and if you have a provider, a healthcare provider that is in your community that you trust, talk to them about your concerns. As we said, get the source, get the right source, because in the age of social media, everyone is an armchair doctor and everyone has an opinion based on their own sort of experience and opinions that may have secondary gain versus trying to keep the population healthy, right? And so we've got to believe that this vaccine, it works. It's, for the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, over 90% efficacy, which I think we've talked about before. When you talk about the flu vaccine is really about 40% efficacious, right? And 30 to 40%. So you really, and it's not, right? Nothing is 100%. You might still get the flu, but again, it won't be as severe. Same thing with the COVID vaccines.
Michelle Echo said, I thank God I'm covered with the blood. I'm not taking it. I had so many tests. Too many of my friends took it and passed away. They took the vaccine and passed away? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I can't speak to that specifically. I always say when people, I'm covered in the blood of Jesus too, and I thank God every day that He gave me the wherewithal and the brains to be able to help people, right? And so He made us in His image. He made us with everything we have. And so we trust that the tools that He has given us to help people are also, His will. He gave us the brains and the smarts and all of that to do good, right? And so I can't say who passed away, who died from the actual vaccine, but people lives are being saved with this vaccine. We know that people have fears. They have general and real fears about whether they can trust what they're hearing, right? Because we've had bad experience, with the Tuskegee experiment where they gave Black men, syphilis and didn't give them the treatment to get well. And so we have fears related to what the government tells us, but we have to also have faith, right? And faith does not mean that you don't believe in medicines or anything like that. It doesn't have to be one or the other. Some people say it does, but I think they both can manifest.
Yes, I was reading some of the comments onto some of these posts, excuse me, that they had on Facebook, and somebody did mention that, like, I'm not taking a vaccine. If we were made in God's image, then our bodies should be able to fight this thing without taking that vaccine. And I'm just like, oh wow, like.
So that same person, do they take any medication? Do they
That's
take
what I was just about to
Tylenol? Do
say.
they take anything to help them fight off a fever, a pain, right? So we have to put it all in perspective, right? And I get passionate about it, I'm sorry, but I just, if that is where we're coming from, right, then you take nothing for anything, right? We put these vaccines in a bad box. But that would go for any medication at all that is out there for anything. You wouldn't take it.
Yeah, I totally agree with
I don't
that.
believe that to be true, right? For people. Yeah.
Yeah, I think people pick their battles. So this is one battle that a lot of
pick
people
their
really
battles.
feel
Yeah.
passionate. Yeah, they feel really passionate about it. And I think that just kind of like overlooking the people that have really lost their lives, their loved ones. And sometimes it was more than one loved one, you know, not just one, it was more than one. So, you know, and I'm sure if they could.
I always think about, right, they would say, take that vaccine, probably, right, for them. You know, I think about Karl Anthony Towns, the basketball player who lost 7 family members, including his mother, to COVID. Yes. And so he still struggles with that if you ever hear him in an interview, but yes. And so you know, if it doesn't touch you in some way, right, or had someone close who passed from it, you're probably in the minority, right? Because we all know someone who's had the disease. Luckily, some people have very mild disease, but we know too that, you know, we haven't touched on the Delta variant that is coming about.
Yes.
So, you know, these variants come about, yes, because the longer, just like the flu vaccine, every year they have to create a new flu vaccine because the flu virus mutates in general from one year to the next. So they create and make changes to the flu vaccine based on the mutations that occur from one year to the next. And so the same thing happens with any virus. If we don't eradicate it in a timely fashion, then it can mutate and it's trying to survive. Viruses are smart. They're trying to survive. So they mutate in such a way that this Delta variant is now easier to catch, it's stickier. It gets to you and sticks in your airways because of how it's changed on the outside and so forth. So we know the Delta variant is more contagious. So for those people who are not vaccinated, who've been able to sort of get by before this Delta variant, which is now the dominant strain in every state, they may not be able to get by now, right? Because we're seeing that it's not only stickier, you know, it's not only more contagious, but it may make you sicker, and it's attacking younger people. So all those things that sort of made us feel like we were getting by, I say think about that, right? Think about that for your family and the people who can't get vaccinated, right? There are people who have cancer who are actively on chemotherapy who can't get vaccinated right now. There's children younger than 12 that can't get vaccinated. So it's important for us who are able to get vaccinated to get the vaccine so we don't transmit it to someone we love who is unable to get the vaccine, who may have a weaker immune system than you do, right? Because you're getting by. But even if you get it and you do okay, you can transmit it to someone who may not do okay.
I think it's like a war out here between the vaccinated and the non-vaccinated. I saw something that says the vax versus the relaxed. So they're saying the people who don't want to get it, you know, they're more relaxed because they feel like, it haven't touched me this far. So, you know, why do I have to do it? But like you said, with that Delta strand running around, it's like, it's more aggressive. You don't know. And it's really contagious. That's the thing. Because we feel like, okay, we don't have to wear masks in certain places. So you know what? We can gather and not have to worry about it. But guess what? We've seen so many cases of one person walking away and then having to call all of these people to say, guess what? I test positive for COVID. Y'all need to go get tested. Right. So we've seen it so many times. So I don't know. I just protect yourself. Protect the people around you. You should want to protect the people around you. So if it's anything that you can do, any action that you can take, that would put you and your family in a place to be safe, then we should be doing that. We should be doing that. Let's see. Tabitha said, she says, I was very fearful.
Let's see, Tabitha.
She says, I was very fearful of the COVID vaccine. After much research and a couple of appointments with my PCP, sure, I drove him crazy. My hesitation was to put it to rest, and I received my vaccination. I am truly an advocate of doing research and asking questions. And that's really, I think we really just want a peace of mind.
Yes.
That's the thing, is that I want to know, if you're pushing this vaccine, then we want to know, am I going to be okay when I take this? You know, because of the horror stories. And we know that with any type of medicines or vaccines, there will be some cases to where some things may happen to certain people. We know if you had the underlying conditions with COVID, you know, people were having a harder time with COVID, or they were losing their lives to COVID. And we don't know everybody's medical condition. When it comes to these things, you don't know. And Doc Michelle and I always push your annual appointments. Or if you have something going in and talking to your doctor. We always talk about family history, things that you should be communicating with your doctor so that you can be on this timeline to say, okay, this is when I need to get these things done. And then your doctor know, if you come in there and say, hey, this is going on with me, like, wait, okay, well, your numbers say one thing, what's going on? But a lot of times we don't even know. We don't know our numbers. Sometimes we don't care to know our numbers. We feel like if our hand haven't fell off yet, we ain't going to the doctor. We okay. The outside looks fine, but the inside tore up from the floor up.
Yeah. We always talk about, right? You have to be preventative. You have to be preparing your body for defense, right? So when things come, that you do well with it, right? I was telling at the beginning of this pandemic, I told everyone who would listen that if you are exposed to the virus, you want your immune system to be primed and ready to go, right? You want to be eating, plant-based foods. You want to be, taking some vitamin D. You want to be hydrated, well hydrated, not drinking a lot of sugary beverages and coffee, which actually dehydrate us. So in general, I'm always a proponent of making sure that you're putting in your body the right things so that if you do come up against something, that your body is armed and ready to fight. And same thing with vaccines.
MyLeah, for kids over 12.
So the same thing. MyLeah wrote for kids over 12. Yeah. Do you think parents should be hesitant to get them vaccinated? I don't, because the same research and studies that went into studying it for 18 and over, they did the same thing for the kids 12 and older. And then remember, there are vaccines that we give to babies who don't even have a full immune system, right? And we give that to them knowing that they're safe, right? Because it helps to build up their immune system to that disease. And so I would not have hesitancy with giving them the vaccine. You think about it, even when you vaccinate your babies, right? When my kids were young and I would take them to the doctor and it was vaccine time and I'm a doctor and I'm thinking, you think about, oh, well, I hope they don't get that one serious condition that happens from this, or, and so I pray and I'm like, here's the baby, give them the vaccine, because the science tells us that it's, important for them to get that. So we continue to have this herd immunity for polio and measles and mumps and all of that. So it's okay to be a little bit concerned, right? Anytime we get any vaccine, you don't know. But again, from a scientist perspective, from a mother perspective, I weigh the benefits versus the risks. School is coming about. The kids are going to be out in school, thank goodness, that they can get back in school. But we want them to have that protection when they go, right? Nothing is 100%, but we know that with these vaccines and the over 90% efficacy, that even if they were to get it, which is quite rare, it's a mild infection. It's decreasing hospitalizations and deaths. And wouldn't we take that, right? Wouldn't we take that over severe disease?
That was one of my questions. Is someone saying, "Well, I don't want to get the virus from taking, the actual vaccine," because some people, have said, "Oh, I took the vaccine, and then a couple of weeks later, I got the virus." I'm like, was the virus already in your system before you took it? So, like you said, it will lessen you having to be in a hospital, having to be on a ventilator, and having all of those things as if you wouldn't have taken that vaccine. So I don't even know if people that haven't decided to take it is looking at it that way. Like, I am not going to suffer as much as if I would have taken the vaccine.
Right.
And we have seen the stories of how people have suffered alone without their families with this disease.
Yes.
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 Also,
it
people talk
is
about
scary. It's the only way we're going to get on the other side of this.
I'm sorry. And some people talk about even like the long-term side effects as it relates to probably the vaccine. It's like, and we really, at this point, we probably don't know because it is pretty new. Even just thinking about not taking the vaccine, and then getting COVID and then having those long-term side effects from that.
Right. So two things. The first thing you said, you cannot get COVID from the COVID vaccine. There's not even pieces of the virus in the vaccine. There's a protein that helps to make your immune system able to attack the virus, but there's no pieces of the virus in the vaccine. So if someone got a COVID, right? If you get a COVID vaccine and you get COVID, we know that it takes at least 2 weeks after your last dose, the second dose, if you got Pfizer or Moderna, to have full immunity. So anywhere in those, from the 30 days between your first and second shot, certainly you should still be using a mask and doing all those protective measures, because you could still get COVID if you are not fully vaccinated. So that's the first thing, right? But you can't get COVID from the vaccine. And then we're seeing and hearing more about people who get COVID, who have those long haul COVID symptoms. Another reason to get the vaccine, so you don't have to suffer with those type of symptoms. About a third of people who get the vaccine can have long haul COVID symptoms with the brain fog, fatigue, and memory issues. So another reason to get the vaccine to prevent that.
David Brass asked a question. What do you think about the Great Reset?
I don't know what that is. Dave, elaborate. I don't know what the Great Reset is.
I feel like it has something to do
so maybe
with
he'll
like
put another question in there for us.
I feel like it has something to do with like your immune system, like you're resetting your system. That's just what I'm thinking. So, Dave, can you elaborate on the Great Reset as it relates to, we're talking about combating vaccines misinformation. So if you're just tuning in, excuse me, please like and share the show. Invite someone else in so that they can get this information, because I guarantee you that there is some misinformation that's going on about the vaccine. And we want everybody to make an informed decision on what's good for you in your body. Like Dr. Michelle said, there are people out here that can't even get the vaccine, and they probably want it, but they can't because right now their immune system is compromised. They're doing treatments. You have people like my 9-year-old daughter that can't get it. So I have 2 daughters that can, but then she's like, I'm vulnerable. I'm out here, and she still has to go to school. She still has to be around people. She still has to wear a mask. And I know a lot of people that probably got COVID thought they were being safe. They thought they had their mask on. They were doing social distancing. They were washing their hands. And guess what? They still ended up getting COVID. So we want everybody to be safe in the households.
Yes.
Make an informed decision that's
right.
That's good for your household. What about those people, Dr. Michelle, that says, I don't want to take this vaccine because, I want to get pregnant and this may mess with me, getting pregnant.
Yeah, so that has been a rumor out there because of the type of protein that is used in the vaccine, and so there's a similar type of protein on placenta, but this protein does not attack placenta. But there, again, get your information from the right resource. There is no linkage to infertility and this vaccine, and really, your benefit versus the risk of getting COVID while you're pregnant or other, sequela is worse than getting the vaccine. Yeah, there's no truth to the vaccine making you infertile.
That's one of those, the misinformations out there that some people may have fears of their own. So because they have fears, they discuss it with other people, and sometimes information gets left out. We all know how rumors start. So again, talk to your doctor and find out. So if there's anything that you need to do or you can do, that you are doing those things, and that you're doing it with accurate information. Because you only get one body. This is your body. You only get one, and you want to make sure you're doing everything that you can so that you can live a long life. And not only that, but we also talk about having that good quality of life when you get older. So not just living and you're not able to do anything, you're not able to go anywhere, you're not mobile, but you want to have that good quality of life so you can run around with the grandkids, you can have some fun. You can, and that's how it was intended to be. But somehow we get lost in this food war with our bodies and, just being complacent and not taking care of our bodies.
That's right. Because, this, as you said, this is the one body that we have.
What about those people, Dr. Michelle, that says, and of course, if you decide to get the vaccine, if you decide to get the vaccine, it's really your business. What about those people that says, if I don't get it, that's my business. But if I'm hanging around you and my kids are hanging around you, yeah, that is my business. I do want to know if you're vaccinated or not. So, because if you're not, then with this Delta variant running around, I may not be coming around you. So I think it is other people's business if you decided to or not.
Yeah. Right. It's a sensitive subject because it is everyone's sort of quote business or concern, because a couple of things. The vaccine is not 100% effective, right? So if you are not vaccinated, you could still give it to someone. And remember, there are a lot of people who can't get the vaccine for whatever medical reason, age, and we're putting them at risk because even though you may be healthy and you are doing just fine, if you get it and you were around grandma or you were around the baby, or something like that, you could certainly transmit it to others. And then we heard a lot about this herd immunity concept, right? And to get to what we call herd immunity, it takes 70 to 80% of a population to be vaccinated. That means that if you have 70 to 80% of the population vaccinated, the people who can't get the vaccine, right, they are protected just by the fact that everyone around them is protected. So that's kind of what we talk about. That's what happens, with the vaccines and eradicating the diseases that we have been able to eradicate, because everybody gets the vaccine, or the majority of people do. So now we have a population that is safe from polio and measles and mumps, and that's what we hope to do by being able to get the vaccine in arms. And we live in a global society now. And so what we do a lot of times just doesn't affect us, right? Because people are traveling across oceans, they're bringing disease, they're bringing corona. That's how we got here in the first place, right? By traveling across the oceans. And so we have to think about, it's not just what we do just affects me, it affects the larger population. And the only way we're going to get ahead of this, and I sure hope we don't have to go back to masks and restrictions and all of those things of last summer, but we could get down a slippery slope where the governor and Mayor Lightfoot or someone says that's what we have to do. And we would hate to get in that position. We want our freedoms. We want to go outside and enjoy the country and the world and travel and, do all the things that we took for granted before COVID. And really the only way we're going to get there is with people getting vaccinated, because you're hearing that it's a pandemic of the unvaccinated, that those are the populations that are hitting this Delta variant. And unfortunately, in a lot of our communities, even here, in our poor communities, where
if you are just tuning in, we are live on Intellectual Radio, and we're talking about combating vaccines misinformation. And Doc Michelle has been dropping her gems on us as usual. Just talking about, she just mentioned that we're in a pandemic of the unvaccinated. So those are the people who maybe be on the fence about being vaccinated, or who has just decided that they are not going to get the vaccination for whatever reason. It could be, as we're talking about, the misinformation that's going around. Hey, Mary, thank you for tuning in. She says she appreciates what she has heard. Thank you guys for sharing the show. MyLeah, David, Michelle, and I see Tabitha and Brenda. Thank you guys for listening and sharing the information, and also your input is very important. Dr. Michelle talked about getting your kids vaccinated, how important it is, because they're getting ready to go back to school. And the last thing that we want is for our children to come home and be sick, especially if you have more than one child, then, everybody in the house, because before you know it, before the symptoms even start, everybody's touching everything and you don't know. So you just have to be vigilant about your own family and making the decisions on what you're going to do as far as the vaccine. So if you're on the fence, as we were talking about earlier, hey, Dr. Michelle, get the information, do your research, ask questions. When in doubt, check the source.
I lost you.
That's okay. No, I was just giving them an overview of what you already talked about. Mary Hale said that she enjoyed what she has heard so far. Lisa said, great topic. You're welcome, Brenda. I appreciate you guys for sharing the show. And again, I appreciate your input. It's very important. I couldn't do the show without your input. I'll just be up here talking to myself, me and Dr. Michelle. So we appreciate it. You keep us on our toes.
Yes.
So, Dr. Michelle, I was thinking that some people may feel like that.
Please get your vaccines.
That COVID, the virus may not be a threat anymore, because we've been through, wearing the mask. We've been on a lockdown already, and then we have been on phase 5, so we have been let out. So, it's really not a threat. So some people may not at this point be taking it serious, but I know in California that they have gone back to the mask restrictions. So, and we're just hoping that we're not on our way there.
Yes, that is our hope, that we do not have to go back there. I know everyone had a very tough 2020. Let's think back to how difficult it was to have to stay in the house for weeks, to not be able to see family and friends. And I think sometimes we forget how tough that was in 2020. And so, just go. We talked earlier about, find your location. Talk to your provider, Get your information from the right source. Know that these vaccines have been studied. The ingredients of the vaccines had been in study for years, and so that's why it seemed like it was quickly. And then when in January of 2020, I remember Dr. Fauci talking about he was concerned about it. And because they could see what was happening in other countries, they knew that it was imperative to get a vaccine. I talk more about the mortality rate, even back in 2020, January 2020, what they were seeing
Okay, if you know anybody who is,
overseas. The mortality rate was like 4 to 5%. That knew they had to do quickly to eradicate this. And now that we have it, we should take advantage of it so we can get on the other side of this and get back to normal. There's no other way around it, because otherwise the virus will keep mutating and keep getting stronger and stronger.
oh, you know, that's the last thing that we want. I was thinking about Japan, how their vaccine rollout is really slow, and only, excuse me, only a quarter
Yeah.
of their people have been vaccinated. So we have the option to be vaccinated. And again, it's a personal choice. We have the option to be vaccinated, and there are some countries that don't, you know, have that option, and they want that option, but they don't have the option, or they're waiting for, you know, the supplies to get over there, and we have it, and we're not taking advantage of it to keep
Yeah.
ourselves safe. So
Right.
what do you think about?
Yes. We have it waiting for us, and there are countries who are desperately in need.
What do you think about, Dr. Michelle, if someone says, why can't we just use, you know, our own body immunity, you know, because our bodies, you know, they heal themselves, you know, we fall, we get a sore, and then, you know, it heals. So why do we need this vaccine? Why can't our own bodies produce what we need in order to fight this off?
Right. So, you know, every virus is different. There's some viruses like a cold virus, right? You get it, your body fights it off, you do fine. And even, right, for a lot of people who got COVID, they were able to fight it off. So it's not that your body can't fight it off, but we know that there is a set of the population that it becomes an overwhelming infection, and inflammation ravages the body from the lungs to all the organs. They fail and they die, you know, a slow death that's very painful because they can't get air. So it's not that your body can't fight it, but again, we're trying to eradicate it for everyone. Even again, if I get COVID and I can fight it off, but I transfer it to someone who, my elderly mother who's 87, and she can't fight it off, that's where the problem comes in, right? We're trying to save lives, and we know that anyone could have a serious case of COVID. We know that there's certain risk factors that certainly make that higher. Number one being obesity, which 2/3 of the population is overweight or obese. And so we have to look at that as a major risk factor for severe COVID infection, in addition to the other diseases we know about. Diabetes runs rampant in the African American community. At least a third of the community adults are have diabetes. So you put diabetes on top of obesity, and now you are really increasing your risk of severe disease. So again, lower your risk. Make sure that you can stay healthy and enjoy your life, and get that vaccine. It has been studied. Get your information. We go back to get your information from the right source. Your provider who you've seen for years, you know, not your neighbor or your friend, but the scientist that can give you the accurate information. It's okay to have questions. Ask your questions. Get them answered. If you don't get the answer from one provider, go to a different provider. Look at the World Health Organization, the CDC website. Use resources that you trust, not social media where everyone has an opinion.
Where everyone has an opinion, but their information that they're giving out has not been verified. So again, like Dr. Michelle said, make sure that you know the source and you trust the source. Rizal said, I think he was talking about earlier when we were talking about the virus going around. He said that's not good because it'll keep it getting stronger and soon it'll take over us. And I think that's what's happening right now with the Delta variant, is that it's more contagious, it's stronger, and it's so easy for individuals to catch. And the longer we keep allowing this virus to be out there, you see how it was wiping everybody out at the beginning. So by now, I would think by now we should have a hold on this. We should really be in a different place with this virus. Okay, I think Dr. Michelle is freezing. I want everybody to join me until Dr. Michelle comes back. Warriors Talk is actually coming up on their 5th annual Survivors Night of Reflection, and I'm so excited. Our theme for the year is Empowering the Warrior Within, and we are going to be at the Ruby Brownstone Infinity Banquet Hall, and it's going to be from 3 to 7 p.m. You can go to Eventbrite and get your ticket. I have an early bird special going on right now. And it's going to be going on for at least a week. So if you get your ticket early, I'm excited, Rizal. I'm so excited. If you get your ticket early, you'll get it at a special price. On this night, we celebrate survivors. That means if you are in the battle or you are on the opposite side of treatment, we are going to be celebrating you, whether it's breast cancer or any type of cancer. So make sure that you go to you can go to warriorstalk.org, or you could go to Eventbrite and type in Survivors Night and Survivors Night of Reflection, and you will be able to get your ticket early so that you can be in the place. Last time we did it was in 2019. We had an amazing time, so I would love to see you there. So, Dr. Michelle, you really already gave some final words already. If you have any other final words, and then tell them how to stay connected to you.
Yeah, so before I lose my internet again, my final words are: get the vaccine, www.coronavirus.illinois.gov or www.vaccines.gov to find a location near you. They will come to you. They've got vans and, stopping at the bus stop. Anybody getting off the bus can get a vaccine. So even you may not have done it as yet, go online, have, a family member find a location where you can get this vaccine free. So you can move about with peace of mind. Use the CDC, use the World Health Organization websites, and let's get on the other side of this thing. Let's keep it moving forward.
Awesome. I'll leave you with these words of wisdom. No decision is in itself a decision. So join me next Monday right here on Intellectual Radio. As always, thank you for tuning in to Warriors Talk with author and founder Lady ReShell, where we are changing lives one warrior at a time.
Thank you for listening to this week's edition of Warriors Talk with Lady ReShell. To find out more about Warriors Talk, follow at Warriors Talk, the number 1, on all social media outlets, and Warriors Talk with Lady ReShell on YouTube. Please join us next week and every Monday evening at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time on intellectualradio.com for Warriors Talk with Lady ReShell, where we encourage, educate, and empower you into action.